日本時間7月29日、米メディア、リッチアイゼン賞に ESPN の記者トンプソン記者が出演しました。ドジャースの大谷翔平選手の元通訳をめぐる違法賭博事件の敏腕調査報道記者として知られる記者トンプソン氏。トンプソン氏は番組内でその事件の経緯などについて明かしました。ここからはその様子を字幕付きでご紹介します。
Just listening to, because episode 2 is mostly
the interview.
Right, the interview.
We call it the interview because it is the interview that I did with Ipe before we published our story on March 20th
of 2024.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just to help people remember what was going on. I had gotten a tip, and it took some months to try to figure out what the heck is going on. And we did a lot of investigating, and we talk about that in episode 1 so that you know what I knew when I went in to do the interview with Ipe. By March of 2024, we had enough to go to Shohei Ohtani's people and say, hey, why have I seen wires showing that Shohei Ohtani's bank account is sending, we've been told, millions of dollars to an illegal bookmaking operation, which for folks who aren't up on MLB rules, you can't bet on baseball, but you also cannot use a bookmaker, an illegal bookie. And so that was potentially damning. And I asked, can I talk to Shohei Ohtani? I was told, maybe, we'll see. But we'll give you someone who knows what happened. And that's how I ended up doing the interview with Ipe Mizahara.
And the interesting thing is that the person who granted you that access and was talking to you was some crisis management PR person.
Yeah, I mean, that's usual.
No, I understand that. But the way you described it on your pod is you reached out to Shohei's representatives, and then a couple hours, this person appeared.
Yeah, a crisis spokesperson called who had just been hired to deal with this.
Yeah, it's you know
that told me that this is serious.
Yeah, you come knock, and then all of a sudden somebody gets a new gig and is being brought up to speed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to Ohtani's agent just with a rumor. I say to folks, I'm not in the business of reporting rumors. That's not what I do as an investigative reporter, and all of the folks that I work with in the ESPN investigative unit, my editors, my fellow reporters, we really do our due diligence before we come forward with something. I mean, there's stories that we've gotten tips on that you'll never know about because it didn't meet the criteria that we need to move forward on something. So by the time I'm reaching out to Ohtani's people, I mean, I've seen some of the wires. I've gotten my hands on documents. I've really talked to sources. And we talk about in the podcast in Sportsland, one of the things that can happen is if you ask someone about something like, hey, is this player gambling or laying sports bets? And you're told no, okay, great, thank you for giving me some information. But what can happen is that that can then become a game of telephone. And someone says to someone, hey, ESPN is asking if this person's gambling, and then that person tells someone, and that person tells someone, and it can come back to you as a rumor or as fact.
Sure.
And that was my great fear. So I had to do a lot of reporting without bringing Shohei Ohtani's name into it. I was trying to find out what people organically knew about Shohei, and then later I get tipped off that maybe Ipe's involved.
Wow.
And the question was, okay, well, what does that mean? In episode 4 of the podcast, we talk to the bookie, the guy, Matt Boyer, about his business and how he does it, how he lures in his folks, his clients, where he finds his clients. It's fascinating stuff. It's fascinating. And then he talks about how he tries to keep them from going bankrupt, but making as much money as he can.
But didn't he know? Okay, I have so many questions here.
Yeah.
Thompson here on the Rich Eisen Show, the investigative reporter behind breaking the story that wound up blowing up what was going on with Ipe Mizahara, the longtime interpreter for Shohei Ohtani. So, okay, a few things here.
Yeah.
Because the interview that you had with Ipe that broke this whole thing wide open, that sort of changed the narrative that existed for about half a day or a full day that Shohei was gambling. And then you found out through this interview that Ipe's like, no, it's me. And I was listening to episode 2. It's the entirety of that episode is basically your interview with the interpreter. And it just sounded so damn sad to me
Mm.
because you busted him. I mean, is what it sounded like. Like he knew that he was now caught here. And is what it sounded like to me.
Well,
just
and I
listening
have
here.
a lot of skepticism when I'm doing that interview. I mean,
Yeah, you
as a
could hear it in your
reporter,
voice.
yeah, as a reporter, you are trying to go into these interviews as well sourced as you can be. And I had people who told me one thing, and I was very interested to see if Ipe was going to tell me the same thing.
What was that one thing that
Well, I
Ipe
mean,
had
there was a
done it?
number of one things, but you know how much money it was. I had very good sourcing that said it was at least $16 million.
Jeez.
And I then sort of in the final hours of getting ready to move forward with the story had heard, well, it might just be 4.5 because that may be what the feds know about is 4.5 million. So when I go to do the interview with Ipe, I said, you know, he doesn't want to tell me. You'll hear it. He doesn't want to tell me how much it is. He says it's very embarrassing. He doesn't want to tell me. And I
Right.
say, well, I have sourcing that it's at least 4.5 million. And he says, yeah, that sounds about right.
By the way, I shouldn't, again, this is not funny, but I audibly laughed in my plane seat when I heard that. It was just like, yeah, that sounds about right.
That sounds about right.
Like what a neighborhooding of money. And then you then followed up.
I say, is it more than that? And he goes, I don't think so. And I had multiple sources telling me it was more than that. So that's a place where, as the reporter, I can tell you in my head, I go, that's interesting.
Going into it to hunt and peck to see, is he covering for Shohei?
Oh, I absolutely asked him that. I mean, I had been tipped off that Ipe was prepared to say that he was the one betting and Shohei was covering his bets. I was told that as early as January. So I spend the next couple of weeks into months with my editor, Elaine Tang, and I, we really tried to figure out, well, what the heck's going on? Because Matt Boyer, the bookie, said he has plenty of clients who are athletes who have had accounts that they either share with a friend or they have a beard. And that's, you know, lingo for someone's making the bets on behalf of a celebrity or someone famous who really needs to stay out of the spotlight. So was Ipe the beard? Was Ipe the gambler? Was Shohei the gambler? And Ipe was taking the fall. You know, what was it? And we had sourcing that was kind of all over the place on that. So that was a lot of what took us so long to get to March, to get to the place where we felt like we could go forward and say to Ohtani's people, hey, the time has come. We want to understand what's going on here.
Well, I mean, and then at one point you could hear as he's going through this interview again. This is in episode 2 that did drop today. The portrayal of Shohei Ohtani, 30 for 30 podcast series out wherever you get your podcasts, where it's clear with every word that's out of his mouth, he understands that the jig is now up. And he also, at one point, he said that he's telling you stuff his wife didn't even know yet.
Oh, yeah.
And that one also hit me when I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Now, you just gave me a look, though. Are we, because again, I haven't heard the rest of this podcast. Is there still a doubt as to what happened?
The feds would tell you no.
Well, I mean, I read the affidavit, and it sure seems like, you know, Ohtani got ripped off.
We interview the man that wrote that affidavit in the very first interview he's ever done. He's an IRS, he's retired now. He's an IRS agent who does these kinds of cases. And he's never done an interview before. And he is one of the agents that read 40,000 text messages between Ipe and Shohei. And they were all in Japanese. So the feds had to translate them. They had agents that helped them with that from Department of Homeland Security and from the IRS. And they went through all the bank records. They went through all of the bookies' bank records and his phone that they had seized. And they basically create this timeline. And he walks us through it. They ended up seizing stuff out of Ipe's car that ends up being important to the story. And they are waiting for Ipe when he gets off the airplane coming back from Seoul because he was fired in South Korea after he did the interview with me. We're getting ready to publish this story that says Ipe says that he was the gambler and Shohei helped him pay off the debt. And that Shohei and he did it together, paid that money off together. And right before we're about to hit publish, I get a call from the crisis spokesperson who says, wait, Ipe lied. He lied and was telling me that in real time, that Shohei was only finding out now that we were working on this story and that Ipe had lied to all of them. So we scramble. I do another interview with Ipe. He says, I say, Ipe, did you lie to me? He says, yes. I said, did you lie to Shohei? He says, yes. And we end up publishing, in that moment, you're publishing what you've been told. Right. It's so weird what just happened.
And again, the lying is that, hey, I went to Shohei to say, can you bail me out? And Shohei's like, I got you.
Yes.
And that they combine together to make these payments. And then the last second you're hitting publish on that. They're like, no, I lied to you. Shohei knew nothing about it.
I mean, I've had people lie to me in interviews over 20 years of being an investigative reporter. That's not a new phenomenon, as you can imagine.
Right.
But this was different because 16 hours later, he was recanting almost, and I say almost because there's a couple of things he doesn't recant, everything he told me. And now he's being accused by someone he had described to me in the interview as closer than a brother, who he spends more time with than his own wife, was now accusing him of massive theft.
But I mean, in episode 5, I believe, do we have this? Play it for me here. This is, you got sound of Mizuhara calling Bank of America?
Yeah, it came out during the court hearing. It is a recording of a Bank of America. When they say this call may be recorded.
They are actually recording it.
They're recording you. Let me tell you, they're recording you.
Quality assurance. By the way, another great fantasy.
No.
Or band. So is that a cover band? All right.
And Rich, I will tell you, I was dying to hear this recording. This was a really important recording. I knew that banks record these calls. I know that you can't just wire $100,000, $200,000, or $500,000 with the bank doing its due diligence.
Of course.
So I really wanted to know who the voice was when they were trying to wire this money.
Sure sounds like the guy I heard all over episode 2. Hit it.
This is a Bank of America recording from February 2022.
Who am I speaking with?
Shohei Ohtani.
Thank you. How may I help you?
So I tried to log into online banking, and it tells me that it's not available to me at this time, and I need a call.
Seymour would track the Bank of America call to the same cell phone number I called when I interviewed Ipe.
Could you tell me the name of the payee and the amount of the transaction, please?
It's for $200,000.
Well, again, that sounds just like the interpreter in question right there.
That is Ipe Mizuhara's voice.
So now, all right, let's just.
Well, I have to tell you, the Bank of America woman didn't buy it. They shut down Shohei's account. And we talk about that in the podcast. They say they're like, no, because he says, they say, well, what is it for? And he says a car loan. And as we ask in the podcast, who needs a $200,000 wire for a car loan from a friend, for a friend? And so Bank of America doesn't buy it. Ipe calls back. There's actually, I want to say it's roughly 24 phone calls between Ipe and Bank of America. That's just one instance of it. And he convinces a different bank employee to reopen the account because he knew everything about Shohei. He had helped set up that bank account with Shohei when they first come to the United States and they're at spring training in Arizona.
All right. So what questions remain unanswered for you right now, 2 years in?
I would love to interview Shohei Ohtani. Well, why not? Why?
Well, I mean, because how thrilled are the Dodgers with your third?
Well, I mean,
now? Let's be straight up here. You know what I mean? Like, this is after this happened, World Series, MVPs, marriage, beautiful dogs, that run around on the field,
children,
right? I should mention that before the dogs.
I mean, he won 2 World Series, but he also now has kids.
No, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what's the point of rehashing this?
Well, and we get into that.
The interpreter's in jail. The interpreter said, "This is me." I mean, the affidavit again. I read it. Like there wasn't a single, to me, a shred of, like, you would know better. I didn't see a shred of, like, it's 100% that he knew about it, that he was directing it, that he was doing this, that he. And the bookie you talked to, does he even say, "Oh yeah, he came to me"?
Oh no, he says, "I only dealt with Ipe."
Yeah, I mean, so
here's the question I have.
Okay.
Oftentimes, when you're looking at these tragedies, when you're looking at these sad stories, for me, it is okay. What is the lesson? What do we learn from it? How do we protect athletes? whether it's Shohei Ohtani or some kid who's coming up in high school right now who's about to be another phenom, right? What are we doing? And when I say we, I'm talking about the teams, the leagues, the agents, the media. Like, what do we learn from this? Because oftentimes these athletes are really young men and women who are making a whole lot of money. And when you make a lot of money and you're young, who is near you? Who's getting close to you? What kind of choices are you, the athlete, making? What kind of choices are the people you trust making? And, you know, this is not the first time that someone close to an athlete made some really questionable choices and really jeopardized the athlete's career or stole from them. And, you know, look at Pete Rose. There's athletes that have made terrible decisions.
So you're saying Shohei should talk about it as a cautionary tale?
I mean, I would like to talk to Shohei to know from Shohei what happened. I've had other people tell me what Shohei knew and what he didn't know, and what Ippei said and what Ippei didn't say, and when Ippei told him and when he did and didn't know that the story was coming. But I'd like to hear it from the man himself. I always want to hear it from the person who really went through it, who experienced it. Now, will Shohei ever let anyone ask him questions? It is fascinating. I'm not the only reporter who thinks this. He is one of the most, if not the most inaccessible athlete a reporter has ever tried to get near. I mean, my colleague, Tim Kewen, who's in the podcast, is a tremendous reporter. And he's done more cover stories for ESPN magazine than any other reporter at ESPN. And he has been trying to profile and has written beautiful profiles of Shohei Ohtani since he first came to the United States. And he says he is the most inaccessible, the biggest enigma that he's ever tried to wrap his head around.
Yeah. I mean, the one time I met him was at a Rams game.
Did you get to ask him any questions?
Well, I mean,
I would love to know.
Actually, he couldn't have been nicer. He took a picture with my son, and the person who got his attention and say like, "Hey, this kid wants to talk to you," was Ippei.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Ippei was sitting right next to him.
You just nailed it, Rich.
And he's like, hey, this kid wants to take a picture. Hopped right up. Couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been cooler. My kid was over the moon. You know.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole question here. Is it possible he didn't know he's getting ripped? Hold on. He didn't go. I'm giving you a scenario. And
okay.
And I know I'm talking to an investigative reporter here. We're at you've heard it all. You've been through it all. Is it possible here he didn't know about it? Ippei did in fact tell you the truth that Shohei helped him get out of it, because he's basically like, oh, I can't believe you've ripped me off, but let me help you out here. I got the money. Just take it. That you're done. And he didn't think anything of it until somebody on his side goes, even you doing that puts you in trouble with Major League Baseball. You didn't know anything about the gambling. Got it. It's going to be tough to prove that if you've paid the money with your guy. And so suddenly Ippei calls you up and goes, no, I lied. And that's the truth that Shohei would never want to talk about the rest of his life, right?
So those are very reasonable questions, considering the strangeness about how the interviews went down.
Right.
That's why I think episode 5 is so important, is we don't just say this is what the feds found, because, the feds have subpoena power. The feds can get people, haul them in and interview them.
Right.
They interview Shohei. We come to find out Shohei was playing the Giants. And earlier that day, he had been through, I believe it was 2 days of interviews with the federal government.
Right.
They interview his bookkeepers, his financial planners, his agent. The feds really talk to as many people as they can. They talk to Shohei. This agent that we do an interview with went through 40,000. He and his team went through 40,000 text messages between Shohei and Ippei. He says there wasn't a single text message, not one, that showed anything about betting or interest in betting or
even
sending
stuff like
money.
How's the meal cooking? Like
nothing
like
that they could see.
Right.
And so that's why I think episode 5 is so interesting. Is it's one thing to sit, read a court document. I mean, I do that for a living. I find them fascinating, but I understand they can be kind of dry. This is actually the people who were, raiding the bookie's house, pulling out, $40,000 watches and casino chips and tying all of that to what's on Ippei's phone as he's coming back from Seoul, South Korea. I mean, it's fascinating how they did their investigation. And it's interesting to hear why they believe so firmly that Shohei is innocent.
いかがでしたでしょうか。このチャンネルでは日本人メジャーリーガーなどを中心に野球情報をお届けしています。この動画が良かったら高評価、チャンネル登録をよろしくお願いいたします。今回も最後までご覧いただきありがとうございました。それではまた次の動画でお会いしましょう。